Hi, this is Majinoni, and here is an anime review for you today. It's for Gunbuster the movie. Now, Gunbuster the movie is an adaptation of a six-part OVA series put out by Studio Gainax in the late 1980s. And this was an amazing piece of work back then. Now, you had two really important key people working on Gunbuster. You had the character designer from Across, which was Haruhiko Mikimoto, and you also had the mechanical designer for Macross, which was Kazutaka Miyatake. Now, along from the character designs, a guy by the name of Yoshiyuki Sadamoto adapted the characters for animation, and he worked on Wings of Honiamas and Eva. So you had really, really talented people working on this project. Now, Aim for the Top Gunbuster pretty much centered around three major characters: Noriko, Kazumi, and Ota. Now, Noriko, she's this young pilot who's like your typical, she's a klutz, she can't do anything right. People wonder why she's sitting behind the pilot suit or pilot seat, because she's totally inept at doing the job. But unfortunately for her, she's also the daughter of an admiral who died during a conflict at the beginning of the series, and generally the people look down upon him because he was responsible for the fleet being destroyed. So not only do you have that, but you have the fact that she's the admiral's daughter, and people think that she's getting special treatment. Now, Kazumi, she was basically the ace pilot. She's the one that everybody looked up to, including Noriko. She did everything perfect. um, Oda, he is the basically the school, or not really at the school, but he's in charge of training the young recruits. And he was actually in space with Noriko's father at the beginning, and as the fleet was being destroyed, the admiral basically threw him into the last escape a ship that was escaping, and he makes it back. So there's also that stigma for Noriko because he was on board, and special, again, going back to special treatment. Now, the OVA, I'm sorry, the movie basically starts off with like the beginning of the OVA where you see the people at school training, and then it quickly goes into space. Now, unfortunately, once it goes into space, we lose a lot of character development. We lose how the characters interact with each other, why they're important to each other, relationships. All of that's pretty much cut out, which is a shame because there's a lot of key things that happen when they're in space. Eventually, they come across the insect race. There's a battle. Noriko's traumatized. Noriko and Kazumi's relationship is strained. Kazumi doesn't want anything to do with Noriko. Noriko blames herself for a friend's death, and things just aren't going well for her. But the one thing that Oda sees in Noriko is her ability to her potential, and they're working on this project called the Gunbuster. Now, the Gunbuster is a gigantic robot, and that's supposed to be the savior of mankind. So he sees this great potential in Noriko and Kazumi working together to pilot this robot. Now, eventually, Noriko gets her act together. She gets the determination. She gets the drive that Oda always knew that was inside of her, and she finally saves the day. Now, the interesting part about this story is, while they're in space, time moves differently. So they might be in space for, let's say, like 3 minutes, but back on Earth, they've months have gone by, type thing. So every time these characters go back and forth from space to Earth, like, they're basically losing huge chunks of time. And then based off of that last battle there, they lose 10 years of time on Earth. You know, like basically they're the only two people left in their graduating class. Their friends have already grown up. They're in married. They're have children, and you know there's a sense of time that they've lost. Now, overall, I think what really made Gunbuster special for me is the ending of the whole story. What they do is like most of it is all in color, but once you get to the very last episode, which was Volume 6, it went to black and white. And I don't want to spoil too much, but all I'll say is this is their last push to defeat the aliens. And when they go off into space, they're basically going to the center of the galaxy, and then they discover that it's white in there. Or we discover that it's white. And hence that whiteness adds to the black and white. Now, there's an epic battle, but unfortunately most of the battle is basically still pictures. The pictures are really nice though, and I just wish that, you know, I would love to have a collection of those for the wall, because a lot of it is, it's not, you know, computer artwork, it's hand drawn, and it looks really nice. Beyond that though, without spoiling it, I will say that the ending to Gunbuster is one of the most satisfactory endings to an anime they've ever seen before. I know that one of the major complaints that we have today is, you know, we get this great beginning, we get a great build-up, but the ending is the most horrible thing we've seen. Animes just don't know how to end. But Gunbuster ended perfectly. It's really emotional, and it ended in it's they ended in such a positive way that, like I said, it really kind of like it tugs at your heart without like being sappy, without being preachy, without being sappy. It's just really well put together. Unfortunately, well, even though it has all of that, unfortunately, the movie does have other issues, and it all stems from, again, going back, character development and how the characters relate to each other, especially the way Oda relates to Kazumi. I mean, it's like everything that's special about those two, it's pretty much gone, because we don't understand the build-up between the two characters and how the relationship builds up over time. There's another girl by the name of Jung, and she stands around there, and we think that she's important. We don't know why she's important, but they don't explain her. So all of her relevance is just gone. And it's really a shame that this movie is missing all of that. I really wish that maybe they took an extra, made this like a 2-hour movie, just to give us a little bit more of how these characters related to each other. Because I think if somebody were to watch this fresh, you're going to go from cases where people don't like each other to suddenly that they're great friends. And you kind of don't know why that happened. Because there's something missing. So what I could recommend doing is, if you want to watch something that's really good, watch Gunbuster. It's old, and the animation does show at times, but the story overall holds up. But what I would recommend doing is, if you can find the OVA series, get that, because it's definitely worth it. Now, with the Blu-ray, you get a nice little picture, and it does come with extras. You get this Gunbuster the movie booklet, where it shows basic character designs, names, who they are, little character descriptions. You get to see the Gunbuster robot, some spaceships. While the mecha designs overall aren't anything like to write home about, I think in its simplicity it actually looks real. And I think that also adds to the effect that they were going for in terms of the story, in that, they try to make it as realistic as possible and give you science lessons, so to speak, which I think, at least in the OVA, was a nice touch to have. Now, you also get this huge fold-out, and what it basically does is it talks about the monsters, the warp, the Rip Van Winkle effect, you know, basically how the science worked in the anime. You get a character relations chart, which was basically a translation of this, the character description, and the the mechanics, the battleships, and most importantly the timeline, so you can follow what's happening. Because if you're not paying attention enough, because time jumps repeatedly, it's possible you might get behind of what's going on. Overall, I think Gunbuster is definitely worth a buy. Unfortunately, in most cases, you'll find this movie really expensive. So what I would recommend doing is just price it out accordingly and look for sales. And like I said, if you can find one that has more than 95 minutes to it, or the OVA, buy that, because that's where it's really worth it. Anyways, if you have any comments or questions, let me know. Rate the video up or down, let me know what you think. And I'll have more reviews later, so until next time.